And did you have a specific role in the Panther Party?
No, not really. I was a entry level person, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and so I really was selling the paper or basically giving them away. But
Mm-hmm.
that was my role. That was to say I had a role, and I was a student uh, in terms of learning the information being provided by the Panthers. Yeah, and I should say that I really got involved in terms of the Panther educational program when I was in prison,
Mm-hmm.
because we had a chapter in prison, and the chapter in prison consisted of persons from various chapters, the New York chapter, Kansas City, Indianapolis chapters were in the prison,
Mm-hmm.
right, and senior persons from those areas were there.
And what year was it that you joined the Panthers?
71.
71. Okay, and 71 was the political climate was very serious in
Hmm.
71.
Yeah.
Can you say something about that? Is there?
Well, by 71, the authorities had really killed a number of Panthers,
Mm-hmm.
and they had really attacked a number of Panther officers. They shot them up, and they bombed them and burned them up. So it was serious at that time, and the Panther 21 was on trial, as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and so the atmosphere was very, very serious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Attica Rebellion happened in 71,
Right,
and George Jackson was assassinated in 71.
hmm and I attended the Attica funeral
Mm.
in Brooklyn. They had it in Brooklyn. So those brothers came home like that, dead.
Mm.
Yeah, so it was a serious situation.
And then another kind of thing that doesn't get talked about enough with regards to the Panthers is the role that women had in the organization. Oftentimes, just the prominent men are featured.
Hmm.
What role did women have in the Panther Party?
Well, the women, I think, most people don't may find this hard to imagine, but I think most Panthers were women. You
Mm-hmm.
know, 50 more than like 60% were women. The person in charge of what I was involved in was a woman, and her lieutenants, one of them was a woman. So uh, and the women played a role. The role was like a given to me in terms of I didn't find it surprised. I came in, I saw the sisters, they were functioning, and they were in leadership positions, and so I was there to learn and whatever they said.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I didn't know, and I could see that they knew. So
Mm-hmm.
that's yeah,
And you're also a veteran member of the Black Liberation Army.
that's right.
What is the Black Liberation Army?
Well, the Black Liberation Army is a Black People's Liberation Army, and it consists of a lot of Black Panthers. Yeah.
And when did you join the Black Liberation Army?
That was in around 73, late 73. Yeah.
And why did you join the Black Liberation Army?
Well, a situation came up, and the sisters who were in charge were saying that these matters should be addressed. And I thought that I should join the Black Liberation Army to say that I was now aware that the racists were waging a war against me and have been waging war against me all my life, and I didn't know it. So I wanted to join the Black Liberation Army to be clear, to say that I'm clear about what is going on now, And now I'm on the right side fighting back to stop these people from torturing and terrorizing and killing Black people. So that's why I joined the Black Liberation Army. And I thought it was a privilege to be able to fight on the side of the people, our people, you know. So that's what I intended to do, and that's why I joined the Black Liberation Army. Yeah.
And were there women in the Black Liberation Army?
Yes, you know, I'm going to say this. I know people be saying they kept saying Asada was doing this, and she was like the only woman, you know, but really it was other women. When I joined the Black Liberation Army, the person in charge of my unit was a woman, and matter of fact, then a sister gave me my guns, you know, who was also in the unit, you know. So, and they participated in the operations, you know, and they were saying it was a sign, but I think they was doing that to communicate to women that really this is not a woman's thing. Don't get involved. It's only one woman, you know, who's doing all of this, and not many other women. Not This is not a woman's thing. I think they wanted to communicate that message to the people. And
when you say they, you're referring to the government.
The government, I'm sorry. Yeah, the government wanted to communicate that message to the people that this is a male thing, perhaps a male chauvinist thing, and women are not involved. But that's not the case. You know, women were involved. Yeah.
And then you were captured in May of 1974. Can you tell us, you know, kind of what led up to that?
Okay, one of the projects that our unit performed to address was that a number of Panthers were being held captured in the Tombs jail located in Lower Manhattan. And it was felt that those Panthers should be freed, so we wanted to get them out. So at a certain point, Black men and women went to the Tombs jail, and we attempted to free the Black Panthers, but we were unsuccessful. And a sister, I think one or two sisters did later on at some point, they were captured after I was captured. They were captured and they went to jail for that. I didn't go to jail for that. They went to jail. Sisters went to jail for that. But we wanted, after we failed the attempt to free the Panthers from the Tombs, we still wanted to continue the campaign. And monies was being raised for our to provide for us, but you know, it was felt that that could take a while before we could get enough to do what we wanted to do. So we decided to expropriate money from a bank. And during the course of the bank robbery, there was a shootout with 150 police officers. Bullets were flying everywhere. Two police officers were wounded, and one Black Panther was wounded. And I was captured and forced to do the 17 years. But I should say this too. Myself and my comrade, Brother Shanti, we at a certain point wound up in a person's house, a private owned house. And while we were in this house, I said to him, I said, these people are surrounding the house, but they are not saying we have the house surrounded, you should surrender. They're not saying that. So I said, being they're not saying that, then that means that what they're going to do is once they surround the house, they're going to shoot the house up, and then they're going to have a team to come in and kill us. That's standard military practice in Vietnam. And so I told them, let's go upstairs. So as soon as we got upstairs, they opened fire on the house. And I was smoking at the time. I smoked a whole cigarette, put the cigarette out in my shell case, and I had reloaded my gun. put the cigarette out in the shell case, and then they stopped. But that's how long they shot the house up.
Mm.
And so I said, being that they intended to kill us, I'm going to go downstairs and get these guys. So I went downstairs. I had a shootout with them. I got caught. They caught me on the staircase. They rushed in the house so fast. I was still on the staircase, going down when I had a shootout with two of them on the staircase, and they missed me about 5 or 6 times. But I shot one of them, and yeah. But I didn't. The police chief was an assassin for the government.
Mm.
And he had sent those 2 guys in there to kill us. And I didn't know about his history. I just found out last year something that he had caused the death of a Black Panther in New Haven.
Mm.
And so he was an assassin for the government. And he really sent those 2 guys in there to kill us, And so I was fortunate that I was able to shoot those guys. And that's how I got to 17 years.
And the shootout occurred in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And you and your comrades were referred to as the New Haven Three.
Mm-hmm.
You had a nickname, Gunny. When did you get the nickname Gunny?
I had that nickname from the military, but I should also say that I was trying to tell people to call me Brother James. But what I was saying to people is that from my limited knowledge of what I was seeing was that persons who were above gunnery sergeant belonged to the officer class, as it were. And they were different from the underclass, And the upper class officers, they knew all of what was going on, in the various situations, the situation in the world and the military. They knew all of that. And we were the underclass. We didn't know,
Mm-hmm.
So, and I said I would, if I got promoted, I wouldn't get promoted beyond a gunnery sergeant, because that would put me in the other class to carry out things against persons in the lower class. I didn't want to be in that class.
Mm-hmm.
And so people would say, well, you the gunny, And so that's how I got the nickname Gunny, I was trying to tell people my name is Brother James, but they say you the Gunny, So I said, okay. But that's how I got that name, It reminds me of how Malcolm X was called Detroit Red, because of his limited knowledge at that time. And so I was called Gunny because of my limited knowledge at that time,
Mm-hmm. So going back to May 74, there's the bank expropriation, and then you guys flee to the private house where the shootout happens.
Oh yeah, we, as I said, we robbed a bank. We was coming down the street. They cut us off, and so we had to abandon our car.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how me and Ashanti wound up in a private house.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a white neighborhood, but we ran into the house of a Black doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And the only Black house in the neighborhood. We ran into his house, and his son was home, and the Black doctor was from Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy his son was there, and he received us. He said, come on inside. Because when he looked out, he just saw a lot of white guys with guns, undercover police, non-uniformed police was running around with guns. And he said, I think the white people are shooting all the Black people. Come into my house. I said, okay, not to worry, everything's all right.
Mm-hmm.
So I told him, I think there's going to be another shootout. Once he saw we had guns, I said, I think it's going to be another shootout. I said, do you have somewhere where you can go and hide? He said, yes, I can go upstairs. I said, okay, you go upstairs and you hide. And it's going to be another shootout. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Right. And then when they came inside, they ultimately didn't assassinate you. How did that interaction go?
Well, once they had intended to assassinate us,
mm-hmm.
but once they saw that we was willing to fight back,
mm-hmm.
and that the casualties was going to mount up,
mm-hmm.
and then they said, well, listen, the house is surrounded. What do y'all want? You want to come out or what? And so our plan was really to just hold out so that the people who got away could get away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they would concern themselves with us. So we said we'll take another 15 or 20 minutes and then we'll surrender, you know.
Mm.
And that's what me and Shanti did.
Wow.
Mm.
And did you go to trial, or you pled, or how did it go?
No, we went to trial and to use the occasion to articulate what it is that we were about.
Mm-hmm.
But we felt that we would ultimately be found guilty, and we were. And but the authorities, they double jeopardied us. You know, they tried us for the same offense in the federal court and the state court, and to parlay the time on it. You know, and they tried us in a certain order. They tried us in the state court first, and then the federal court. Then they sent us to federal prison. And so when I went to parole, they were saying I had a record. I said, I don't have a record. You know, and they said, well, you were convicted in the state court. That constitutes a record. I said, that's not a record.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, that's an instance of double jeopardy. And our lawyer filed, a lawyer named John Williams, very good person. He filed a double jeopardy appeal, petition the court to act on our appeal, that petition that to say that they had double jeopardy us, and the court agreed with us. But they slow walked that for 15 years, and then they agreed after they denied me parole, you know, numerous times because of having a record. None of us had a record, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So where they kept saying, I have a record, but even if I did have a record, the court says that, you know, you're supposed to consider my behavior while in prison, and that is supposed to be the determining factor, not the fact that I have a record, and not the seriousness of the offense. The seriousness of the offense was taken into consideration when it was deciding on what statute to charge me with. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so you know, I told them, you know, at one point they denied me parole. I got up to leave. They said, "Come back, say something." You know, I said, "Well, listen, you people are criminals. You had a chance to do something good, to not be a criminal and grant me parole, but you chose to not to grant me parole, so you're criminals, you know, and you're the ones who should be locked up." And I felt that they were criminals because they were doing something that the law did not provide them to do. So they were actually acting on their own, and it was a criminal thing. Keeping me in jail beyond uh, the time that the law says is a criminal thing. You kidnapping me and everything, you know. So that's what I told them once, at one point. And once the court agreed that they had double jeopardy me, they brought us back, and they said they was going to retry us, you know. And unless we copped out to, let's see, 5 years. I think I got 5 years for that. 5 years to run concurrently with my sentence, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I had done the 5 years, you know, but basically that's what they wanted to get that conviction anyway. But it was for 5 years or something. And I went back and got parole because I had been in for 15 years. And so I got parole and I got out. Mm-hmm.
And you were tried in state court and federal court,
Mm-hmm.
and it was state court in Connecticut or New York,
Connecticut.
and the federal court was also based in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And you did time behind the wall in federal prison or state prison.
Federal prison.
And where were you located in federal prison?
Well, once when they sentenced us, I should say, at the sentencing, I read a statement, and I was saying basically, in light of Black people's situation, a Black person should be uh, fighting or in jail or dead, you know. And so fighting or in prison or dead. So once that procedure was over, They put us in a 9-car caravan, rode us through the black community about 2 or 3 times, with the sirens on, slowly riding us through the black community 2 or 3 times to let them know that we have the Black Liberation Army guys right here. And after the 3rd time, they took me straight to prison, to Lewisburg. I went to Lewisburg, stayed there for a while, a month or so. Then I went to Terry Hut. I went to
Lewisburg's in Pennsylvania.
Lewisburg, Pennsylvania.
And where's Terry Hut?
Terry Hut is located in Terry Hut, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
I went there, and I'm just running down the place I went. I went to.
How long were you in Terry Hut?
About 7 years. Mm-hmm. So I went from Terry Hut, then I went to Marion. I went to Springfield, Missouri, then I was released from Long Park, California.
And what were the conditions like in federal prison at that time? I know it's 17 years, so it's hard to summarize it. But
it was at the time they had just kicked off the campaign, to do the mass incarceration.
Mm-hmm.
So they were really flooding the place with black people.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time when I went to jail, I think they were doubling up the cells, and the place was really crowded. And it was good for a prisoner. It was really crowded, and they didn't have the staff, and they had bringing in a lot of black soldiers,
Mm-hmm.
And I heard a guard tell another guard one time, he says, these guys is not like the guys they used to bring in here. These guys, they will hurt you or kill you.
Mm-hmm.
So that meant they were really bringing in a number of good persons, but it was really crowded. And the authorities, of course, they was trying to kill me night and day. And I'm surprised if they went to Iraq. They had people to go to Iraq because wherever they went, I'm saying, because they would seem like they had everything concentrated on killing Tarik,
Mm-hmm.
all the forces, satellites and everything, reading your minds and all that. And psychologists, everybody was trying to kill Tarik, And that's what the government does. They had assured the police, don't worry, we're going to kill Tarik. We have our ways of killing these people. And they intended to kill me, set me up to be killed by other prisoners. And then they intended to kill me by way of me having a heart attack as a result of tension. They
Mm-hmm.
run around too much tension and bust a pipe and all that sort of stuff. And they intended to kill me. They used to blow smoke in had my vent cut off and blow cigarette smoke in my vent,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure I catch cancer. And then they had the thing of attempting to train me to continuously eat so I would develop diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they would, the sweets thing, they would do this here. They would serve the food, which was regular food, you could eat it. And then for 2 or 3 days, and then for 4 or 5 days, they would serve you food that you couldn't eat. It was right out of the refrigerator, solid, still frozen,
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable, and serve a lot of pork and stuff like that, and you just couldn't eat it. And so after you got hungry, then the 4th day, they would bring out the soda machines, tell people, this is your day. And that's the day they're going to bring out the soda machine, give away free sodas, and give away, instead of one dessert, you could take as many desserts as you want. And I was telling people that they intended for us to develop diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
They get you hungry by these periods of you can't eat the food. You come there hungry, starving. I ain't have no money, so I couldn't buy all the stuff that the guys in the mess hall was selling. They could steal food and sell it. I couldn't buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of us were hungry when we came there. So And then they would say, these days you can have all the soda, much cake as you want. They just say, you can't, if you put 6 cakes on your thing, you can't put another tray on top of that and put 6 more cakes. They tell you take all the food to your table and then come back and get 6 or 8 more. On these days, these are special days. And I was telling people, listen, they are putting us on a regimen to train us to continuously eat and to eat, training us to eat the wrong things, sweets and sodas and stuff like this for to give us diabetes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And how did you survive all those attempts to kill or put your life in jeopardy?
I had to be aware and to see that I had been a crucial part of some scenario they had worked out.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to figure out some behavior thing on my part to prevent these things from happening, killing from happening, you know. But there was a couple of times when I had went looking for guys, you know. I had 2 knives on me on a unit searching for a guy and I couldn't find him. And the guy with his friend would get in touch with me and say, you know, I'm sorry, Tommy, I didn't mean it, you know.
Mm.
And so, yeah, a couple of times I had to do that, you know. So, but I survived like that. And until, you know, I got to know the people uh, in jail. There was a guy who was in charge of the DC mob, was the biggest mob gang in the jail. And he had shot Senator Stennis. Senator Stennis was the most racist guy in the United States at that time.
Mm.
And so I got to know him. And this way, if I had a problem with DC mob, I could just tell him and he would take care of it. You know?
Mm-hmm.
But then I got to know another guy who was in charge of all the white guys. His crew had killed 3 police officers during the course of a bank robbery. And one day we were talking and he said, Tarik, you know, I'm going to let you know I'm a revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't say that because revolutionaries get treated worse than cop killers. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so to be a cop killer and a revolutionary is a double whammy.
Mm-hmm.
But so he didn't let people know that he was a revolutionary, but he was in charge of all the whites and the gangsters and everything. So that's why I could get with him. Then it was the Gary, Indiana mob, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And some people that I grew up with, like Poochie gangs,
Mm-hmm.
I told you about them. And then some other guys who live across the street from me, they became in charge of a gang. And so I just mentioned them and said, well, you know them? Yeah. So I had the Gary mob. So when they sent me to Marion, the warden says, I know who you are. You're Tarik. You took over the jail in Terry Hut. And the guys no longer listen to us or the CIA. They only listen to you. Because I could have had a guy, the CIA could get a guy killed in a week. I could get you killed right there. You know, so that was the deal. And the guy had told me, he said, listen, they told me to bump into you, but hell, the CIA can kill me next week, but you can kill me right now. So I'm telling you, I'm not going to, I tell them I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm telling you what they told me. Yeah. So.
And was it true what the warden said? Did you really run Terry Hut?
Well, what happened was that that place was a killing field, you know.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, people was getting killed so fast that the guards would just pull a blanket off somebody's bed and put the people on it, drag them down the hall. So after a while, they just put stretchers outside the doors.
Mm.
Yeah, I started getting my calculator out and figure out how long it would be before everybody was killed off. That's how much killing was going on. So, but the when you go to these places, they'll let you know. Listen, I'm the captain in this jail, and I'm authorized to kill you. You know, that's what they talk to you as soon as you come in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm authorized to kill you. You know, you're in a federal jail. We can kill you at any time and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but they were some ones who set people up to get killed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm saying, like, I talked to brothers and other guys. As a matter of fact, the Mexican mafia guy, one day he was telling the black guy, he said, I want to learn about revolution. And the guy said, you want to learn about revolution? That's Tarik right there. So we became friends. He was in charge of the Mexican mafia. He had killed 3 guys. He wasn't going to get out. He wasn't going to get out. But so I told him, I see them. We all be kicking it. So I said, before somebody get knocked off, man, we got to see what's happening with that because, people get knocked off who shouldn't get knocked off,
Mm-hmm.
And so for a while, so I'm saying let's talk about it and see, look into it before somebody get killed,
Mm-hmm.
And so that would mean that if we slow down for a minute, we'll see that Joe here is responsible for really setting this situation up. Once we just look at it and examine it, and that slowed down the killing because them guys didn't want to be exposed because they was going to get killed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that for about a year or so, before they sent me out, they saw the killing was stopping. All the fighting and stuff that was stopping. So they said we got to get rid of that Tarik guy, and they was trying to kill me in that. They seen in that atmosphere that was not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So they sent me out to Maryland.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize how serious it was at that time in prisons. Where you had, like we mentioned earlier, George Jackson was assassinated in prison. I mean, and his comrades were shot right there on the yard in the open, by correctional officers. And when you think about Attica, the police went in and just slaughtered people. And they even killed some of their own people just because they just were willy-nilly slaughtered. So I think that what you're articulating is not remotely exaggeration. I think, and a lot of people don't realize that. I think now it still exists. We hear in Rikers there's deaths all the time. But I think one of the things that's different now is there's less consciousness among the so-called prisoners.
But the people, civilians should know that if a guy hit a guard, this is a very serious matter. That guard must have done something very serious to that guy because that guy knows the guards are going to come in and beat you up. First of all, I hit a guard in Maryland. They jumped me, and they roughed me up a little bit. But so that's a very serious matter. If you're going to hit a guard, you're talking serious matter because they could stomp you in the head, you'd be brain damaged, you'd be walking. There go Joe there, he's doing this time, and Bob helps him out, because he's brain damaged, and they kick out all your teeth, like that, and that's what happens, man, So the civilians don't know that if a prisoner hit a guard, the guard must have done something very serious to him, because this guy is going to pay serious consequences. That's the real deal. So,
is there anything more you want to say about the New Haven 3 or the BLA before the Black Liberation Army before we move on a little bit?
The Black Liberation Army is fighting to stop these people from terrorizing us and torturing us and killing us, and that's what revolutionary formations are about, and that sort of thing. Okay, but and revolution is about introducing new methods for raising children, new methods for teaching students, because the present methods are designed to teach students to obey and teach students to have a high respect for authority figures, and the authority figures are the ones who hate us and are killing us. And so our students are being taught to respect them and to love them, and these people are killing us, So instead of fighting back, our students want to get in their organization and want to work with them instead of wanting to learn how you're going to save yourself, because these people are carrying out genocide. They intend to kill every black man, woman, and child, and every white revolutionary. That's the plan.
Mhm.
So,
And one other thing I wanted to ask you about the BLA is this past year, Thomas Blood McQuarrie passed away,
mhm.
and he's someone I've admired. Did you know Thomas Blood McQuarrie?
Hmm.
And is there anything that you want to say about him that maybe the audience doesn't know?
Well, Thomas Blood McCleary was a member of the Black Liberation Army. He was a very good person. And as I said, we are fighting to bring about a new method for raising children, the modeling method. We want to bring about a new educational methodology. Uh, and this is what Blood was about. And Blood knew how it goes in these places. They know that the police is terrorizing us, and they're terrorizing our children. And Blood felt that we should have done more to these people, because compared to what they do to us, you know. But Blood was a very good friend of mine, and we had Ashanti and I had tried to take care of him when because he wasn't feeling well all the time. We used to try to take care of him.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And then you, when you got out of prison after 17 years, you went back to New York City,
Mhm.
and you continued to engage in activism. Sorry, I keep
Mhm.
asking you questions while you're
No, it's okay. It's okay.
while you're drinking.
I can listen to it.
Yeah.
Yes, I got out. I should say this, that before I got out, uh, I was telling the prisoners that one of the things that the prison establishment intended to do was to train us to continuously eat so we would develop diabetes and then
Mm.
put us out of jail. And my parole date was February 14th. And Nelson Mandela's parole date was February 11th.
Mm.
He got out on the 11th, but before the 14th came up, the authorities came to my gate and they talked through the gate at night and they said, Tommy, you got to stop telling the prisoners what you're telling them or we're not going to let you out.
Mm.
So I continued to try to save our lives. And they charged me with attempted escape, so I had to do another year in jail.
Mm.
And so I didn't get out when Nelson Mandela got out. I got out a year later, and Deruba got out around that time.
So you got out in '91.
Mm-hmm. And Mandela got out in '90,
Mm-hmm.
and that would have been a significant difference.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I got out and continued to struggle. The Black Panther Party had been fully defeated in the 80s. And so when I got out, we still wanted to involve people in a revolutionary struggle and to let them know that we can win and that there are steps to take, as I say, that would put us on a sure footing to win. And I say we have to train our children differently by using the modeling method. Because, see, when somebody kills somebody out here or killed 3 or 4 people, they don't have a psychologist come on the TV and explain that this person was raised wrong and should you employ these different methodologies, your children won't turn out to be a mass murderer also. And that's what we are trying to do, revolutionaries are trying to do, to let people know that there is a different way to raise the children. And when you order your child to do something, you're bending their will and you are doing damage to that child. And if you are always giving them orders and let them know everything they do is wrong, you really do damage to them and you mess up your children. The authorities say, don't spare the rod, that sort of thing. But that's a way to raise a child to make them suitable for living in this very messed up society.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to raise a good child, a self-actuated, intelligent child, you want to go back to how people around the world raise their children. And they use the modeling method. They would let their child know if they wanted them to read, they would let the child see them read. You don't tell the child, wake them up 6 o'clock in the morning, boy or girl here and read this here. You don't do that because they will resent that because that's an infringement on their will. You let them see what you want them to do. And then at a certain point, they will ask you, what are you doing? And then you will explain to them. And then they will involve themselves in that. That's the way to raise children.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are saying that we want to raise peace-loving children. And peace-loving children will find living in this society to be repulsive. They would rebel. They couldn't live in this society where a person, my boss was telling me, God damn it, bring your ass in. Okay. And that's what the whole Me Too thing is about. And you look at all these Olympic women who were, these people, the doctors and all that stuff, messed them up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they had to do all of these things and, to be involved in that particular sport or acting thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't need that. We need to, we need to raise our children, as I say, the way people around the world raise their children. It's only when the patriarchal people took over society that you have people raising their children the way that, boy, I told you, girl, get yourself over here. I'm the head of this household. You got to do what I tell you to do, else get your ass out, get you a job. You know, you done marked up my wall. You know, parents tell their children, you done marked up my wall, messing up my house. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so that type of attitude is turning out very bad persons, and it's contributing significantly to us continue to be oppressed because, as I say, these people want to join the service and beat somebody up,
Mm-hmm.
or be a police officer and beat somebody up after they go through that type of training, that type of home training. So we want to do a different kind of home training to turn out a different kind of person, a loving person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this what you're discussing reminds me of something that Mama C, Charlotte Hill O'Neill, posted about on Facebook just this past week. That she lives in Tanzania,
Mhm.
or Pete's in exile in Tanzania, but she went to a birth of a child in Tanzania, and noted that there were 400 people that came to the birth, and they came in busloads just to kind of congratulate the birth of this child as a child of the whole community.
Mhm.
And it's just a totally different mentality
Right, that's right.
and when you discuss what you were discussing, it reminded me of what things that she discusses in similar regard.
Mhm.
Um, I guess another question I wanted to ask you about was that there's still many Panthers that are and other political prisoners that are locked up and behind the wall.
Mhm.
Can you please discuss the importance of centering the fight to free political prisoners today?
Right. It's important that we focus attention on that because to focus attention on political prisoners is indicative of us knowing that war is being waged against us. And we are in a situation where the authorities, the rich ruling class, are exercising colonialism against the people. And I use that term. They exercise colonialism against countries, but they really exercise colonialism against people. And and I say that because that word really describes what is going on. And the root word of colony, the root word is colon.
Mm.
And when they first introduced that word, they were clear about what they intended to do to the people that they encountered. They intended to do what the colon does in the body. The food that go in the colon extracts everything useful from that food and it expels only waste.
Mm.
And when the authorities were discussing their intended relations with other people, they chose to use that word. And this is the word that they use. This is the practice that they use in the society against people, and this is the practice they use against Puerto Rico and the Philippines. And they intend to extract everything from us and leave us with very little to work with. So they know that people are going to want to not be involved in that relationship. And to keep us bound in that relationship, they are using terror and they are using brainwashing techniques on us. And this is what is going on. So that when we say that we embrace political prisoners, we are saying we are aware of that process and we would like to discontinue that process. And we know that the political prisoners are the ones who physically fought to discontinue that process, the whole process. So that's important to embrace political prisoners.
Mhm. And we heard this week that Dr. Batulu Shakur is supposed to be released,
That's right.
and that they're trying to raise funds
Mhm.
for him, for his release.
That's right.
And so we'll put links to that in the description of this interview so that people can donate and contribute to that. I guess my question is, what is your diagnosis of the left today and the movement today, to the extent that there is even a movement?
I know there are small groupings of persons, and that's very good. Uh, but I think that the groupings exist, and I think they want to learn all of what's involved with revolution, and I think that's important. And that is the important matter, that uh, persons have to fully know uh, what has happened in society from the beginning, and know have that knowledge with them when they confront a person, so that they can convey to a person fully what this is all about, and they can help a person who has been damaged by the system, to let them know that the system intends to uh, train everybody to think of themselves as stupid, that they do everything wrong, that they are cowards and that sort of thing. And I think uh, revolutionary organizations have to know these things, all of these things, in order to be successful, because just to say that the persons are racist and they're bad fellows, and that's good, because we revolutionaries, we are people, and we have a knife to our throat. So I understand why people say, look, we got to get organized. We got to get organized now to get this knife from our throat. But it's a little bit more than that, and so that's what I would recommend, that the formations that exist today will be cognizant of that and know that we want to fully educate people in terms of what the struggle is about.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, do you have any additional advice for up and coming activists today beyond that?
Well, I would like for people to try to get involved with try to learn from a formation in terms of what this struggle is all about. We have a hard struggle because the authorities are micromanaging everything, and they are there at every turn, preventing the people from getting the knowledge that they need. But that's the task that revolutionaries have taken on themselves to do that. And so we have to do that and try to be better at doing these things.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are all the questions I had for you for today. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss or add before we close?
Well, in closing, I would say that we want to, an essential part of the struggle is knowing that we have to use the modeling method for raising children. And revolutionaries really have to look into that. I feel that they have to look into that.
Mhm.
And we have to know that we want to do the curriculum of inclusion. That's important. But we want to know that the obeying method in the school situation is turning out persons suitable for living in this society, so that revolutionaries have to examine that, analyze that, and know the corrective steps to be taken so that we can turn out a person who is self-actuated and a person who is unafraid. And that's what a modeling method for raising children. You don't instill fear in your own children. You put the brakes on our development ourselves. We digging ourselves in the hole, digging the hole deeper instead of getting out of it by yelling at our kids and beating them. We have to, revolutionaries have to take a role in those areas that I'm talking about.
Mhm. And are there specific resources that you particularly like regarding the modeling method that you would recommend to the audience?
Well, I would say you want to learn how people exist during the early stages of humanity. And you want to learn about the African tribes of Maasai, for one. And I'm sure there are tribes in South America that still exist. And you want to learn that. Also, you want to look at the indigenous people, how they are treated, and the indigenous people when they were in the residential schools.
Mm.
And you want to see what was done to them, because that is an example of brainwashing.
Mm.
And that brainwashing methodology is the same thing that's used in the military. They took the indigenous people, they made them take their clothes off. You go in the military, they make you take your clothes off. You go to jail, they make you take your clothes off. And once you study any one of them, you will see what brainwashing is. You study the children in the residential indigenous schools, or you study prison or jail, and you will see brainwashing. You know, every decision is made for you. That's brainwashing.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want to study that, because then you'll see what the American government is doing to the American people, but they're not telling them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why this goes on. As a matter of fact, the enemy of the government of the United States in terms of resources, they spend most of the CIA and them, they spend most of their resources on the American people, not on the Russians, not on the Chinese. They spend a small amount on the Russians, a small amount on the Chinese. They spend the greatest amount of money on maintaining control over the American people,
Mm-hmm.
terrorizing the American people and brainwashing the American people. That's what people don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the CIA do. The American people is the greatest enemy of this government from their standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they spend most of their resources. Not in Russia, not in China, not in Nicaragua. They spend it on the American people, terrorizing and getting away with terrorizing and killing and brainwashing American people. That's what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they maintain their control.
Yeah, but I think the people, when they think about the CIA or they think about COINTELPRO or they think about the Department of Defense, they just think about the violent aspects of those entities. You know, the COINTELPRO raiding Fred Hampton's home, in Chicago, or the locking up of political prisoners, or the Department of Defense and the attacks that they've done in Iraq and Libya, throughout the world. But they also don't think about the psychological warfare that's been going on, where the Department of Defense contributes an extensive amount of money into Hollywood, and into what people are learning through movies and thinking through movies, through music. And if you look at music over the course of time, it not only is it more and more individualistic, but there's no political message anymore. Now they talk about even the kind of love songs don't exist in the same way that they used to exist. You listen to R&B, you don't hear love songs like they used to exist. or you listen to any sort of kind of popular music, whether it's rap, rock, none of that has political message anymore. In fact, a lot of the messaging is use drugs that I don't even think the artists use drugs to that extent, because if they use drugs to the extent that they talk about, they would be, dead or completely hooked. Particularly now the types of drugs they're talking about, it's not just marijuana and alcohol. It's all sorts of drugs that one can't do for an extended period of time and remain, active. So these are the layers of killing of consciousness that I think you're kind of hinting at.
Right, I'm hinting at that, and that is what is going on. The CIA, they have given the red light to conscious music, music to help and raise our people up, and they have given the green light to gangster rap music, as you say, and this is what I'm talking about in terms of brainwashing people. Matter of fact, the movie Black Panther,
recent Wakanda movie.
Wakanda was the first one, Black Panther.
Right, Black Panther.
Black Panther, the first movie that they made, and the one that just came out. These are they spent $200 million on the first movie, and so this is what the CIA is doing to train people, brainwash people. And one of the things, the objectives of that Black Panther movie was to eclipse the real Black Panther. And you see the second movie, it starts, the first couple of sentences in the second movie is, Joe, what about the Black Panther? Black Panther is irrelevant now. That's the first couple of lines in the movie, and that's what I was talking about in terms of them having made the first movie was for the purpose of eclipsing the Black Panthers to make the real Black Panthers irrelevant. And when you see the second movie, that's the first discussion that they have. And the person says the Black Panthers are irrelevant, but they give the red light to conscious helping music to help people out, love song. And they give the green light to gangster rap, and I got this, and I killed Joe, and I popped Bill, and that sort of thing is to spread hatred of each other and to spread hatred of women. This is what they intend to do, so, and that's part of having people concern themselves with these matters. Once you mess them up, they will be receptive to that type of music,
Yeah, I mean, the layers are absurd. I mean, if you Google Black Panther now, or you search on the internet, because I won't just say Google's the only option, but if you were to search on the internet for Black Panther, you really have to dig deep or search very specific to find something about real Black Panthers. But instead, you're going to get all this, Wakanda nonsense.
Right.
And like you said, that's one of the many layers of trying to erase real history and forget actual veteran Panthers that exist today, real heroes that exist. We don't need, a fake movie about it when we have real people living, people that are still locked up. None of this is discussed in the movie. So yeah, I think what you're talking about is important. Well, that's all the questions I have for you. Anything else you want to mention?
Well, I would just say power to the people. We need power, and we're going to get power. We know the way now. We are fully aware of what must be done, and we are in the process of doing it. So that means that victory is assured. We are assured of winning.
And what's the call?
Free them all.
Free them all. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. It's an honor to speak with you and get to know you better.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.